Hello today. I'm so glad to have you all with us, and I am super excited, as I always am, to introduce Sandra Pelletier. She is the Chief Executive Officer with 4 decades of leadership experience in the nonprofit sector, specifically in community-based service delivery systems. She's made significant contributions as the head of Gateways Community Services in Nashua, New Hampshire, which is the second largest of 10 regions in the state. Her comprehensive background comprises all facets of nonprofit organization, management, and oversight, including executive and financial management, strategic planning, grant writing, and total quality management. Under her guidance, Gateways has become a model for participant-driven services, managing a multi-million-dollar budget to support more than 2,800 individuals and their families across New Hampshire and Massachusetts. Sandy has also played a vital role in re-engineering initiatives, including new development, mergers, and significant involvement in public policy redefinition through the legislative process. Her expertise has been sought as a consultant in the field of developmental disabilities and elder participant-driven services across various states. Sandy holds a Master's of Education from the University of New Hampshire and a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Maine, with additional certifications in nonprofit management. Her outstanding work has earned her several accolades, including being named one of the 25 extraordinary women by the Telegraph of Nashua in 2013. And most recently, which I got to witness myself, she was the 2024 Nonprofit Leader of the Year by Business New Hampshire magazine. In addition to her professional achievements, Sandy is actively involved in several boards, contributing her expertise to various organizations and foundations, highlighting her commitment to community service and the betterment of society, which truly is. Sandy has been in this field for so long, and I've had the opportunity to know her for quite a number of years. We won't go into how many, but her work is outstanding, and she's really on the cutting edge of being able to implement supports that are both progressive and focused on the individual and their families and that sort of thing. So Sandy, welcome. Thank you so much for coming today.
Well, thank you, Bethany. I appreciate the wonderful intro. Not necessary, but I very much appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. It's been an incredible journey, one that I'm proud to have had the opportunity to participate in for sure.
Yeah, and things have changed a lot. I mean, for those of you that haven't been with us for a long time and you might not remember back in the days of the state schools and things like that, things have changed significantly, and a large part because of it being such a grassroots movement, especially in New Hampshire, but really because people have said, we want more. We want more for those we love. And Sandy has been that person that's listened and championed that and found other ways to support them. So Sandy, with that being said, can you tell us a little bit about the sorts of supports and services that people can look at, especially if they're prior to school age, if they're saying, my gosh, I just feel like my child may need some additional supports or something, and how they can go about accessing those things?
Absolutely. I'll share that with you. But I want to just share one thing as you were speaking about New Hampshire. One of the things that I'm very proud of with the state of New Hampshire, which really kind of helps direct policy and decision making, is the families, the individuals themselves, particularly the family members. They remind us all the time that nothing about us without us. And this is truly a partnership with our parents and individuals with disabilities. This is not about us as professionals making decisions about people's lives. It's about us collaborating and learning from each other. And I think that really has driven New Hampshire for the last 40 years, and with the closing of the state institution, as well as the development of new services for individuals who have disabilities, and just the advocacy that happens in our state. So just really wanted to kind of share that with you.
Tourism is amazing. Like it just is, it's astronomical how much people get involved, and really, if you want to make a difference, you can in this state. So
you absolutely can in the state. And I've been, in a number of policy conversations where family members truly have a voice if they so choose. And we all need to listen to the individuals and the advocates themselves, because it's their lives and we're walking alongside them, but it's their lives. So you had asked about children's services. Basically, what's available in New Hampshire and is now entitled, that I remember when it wasn't entitled, but there are services for little ones between the ages of birth to 3. It's called Early Supports and Services, and it's intended for individuals that are demonstrating some delays. We try really hard to connect with pediatricians, local practitioners, and really educate them about what opportunities exist for the little ones, birth to 3-year-olds, who might be showing some significant or some level of delay. That is now an entitled service here in our state. And an individual parent, a parent can self-refer, or a pediatrician can make the recommendation. And a little one, I call them little ones because they're really cute and they're sweet. And I love seeing them in our building coming in for an assessment. So this is available throughout the state. And then we cover a certain geographic area in the southern part of New Hampshire. We're the greater Nashua area and cover about 11 towns. But you could live in Manchester and you'd go to the counterpart organization in Manchester. So there is a listing of a number of organizations that provide early supports and services, and Gateways happens to be one of them. We've served probably close to 500 infants a year. They transition out pretty quickly. Some don't need long-term services, but they come in and they are assessed, and then by a team of therapists. They do a comprehensive assessment. It's usually 2 therapists, or a therapist and an educator, depending on how the child's presenting, and they do an assessment. And then they create a plan of action, or an individual service plan for that child. And it really is a partnership with the parents. The parents are really taught on how to do some of this preventative kind of work or therapeutic work. So you're not just depending on a one-on-one speech therapy session or physical therapy session. The therapists go in the home, work with the family member, the parents or guardians, grandparents, whoever is the caretakers, and teach them how to interact and provide some of these preventative intervention services. It's really cool. I will quickly tell you a story. Oftentimes I will be somewhere like a dental office chair or a Dairy Queen, and somebody will say, "What do you do?" And I tell them where I work, and they'll say, "My son or daughter benefited from the early intervention program, and now he's rocking it and he's in college, or high school." And so we meet some really, we've touched a lot of lives here in Greater Nashua, and it's a really important service. And many youngsters come to us. They get these services for a year or 2 and transition out. Some transition to public education if they continue to have needs. And we work very closely with our special ed department so that we transition a young child before they turn 3, so that the public school is aware of what the needs might be. But some transition completely out and don't need any services after early intervention.
Which is a really difference, like the early intervention model, the fact that you're training the families to provide interventions on a daily basis consistently, that makes such a huge difference, and is probably why you're able to exit many individuals out of services so that they no longer need services, because these interventions are being able to be implemented on such a much more regular basis. And with that being said too, it's giving the families the confidence and the skills to be able to really navigate whatever challenges that they're feeling they're facing.
Absolutely, you're right on. And that's what it is. Really giving the parents the tools for their toolbox to use and support their young child.
Are there other programs that parents can access as far as supports for their child prior to the age of 22?
Gateways is involved in a couple of programs. One, I guess I'll start with this one. If you're a child and you come through early intervention as an example, I'll use that as an example, your disabilities continue. Just say you need to continue working alongside Gateways. Gateways has a major program between the ages, I would say 3 to 21 or 3 to 18, and it's called our Family Support Services. All of the 10 organizations that are similar to mine, to Gateways, an area agency, has that component. All of us are required by legislation to have what is called a family support council. So the council acts as an advisory organization or a board to Gateways organization. And our job is to kind of create services and supports to families. The primary services most of these families will receive at the age of 3 to 21 is public education. That's their entitled service. But we're a collaborative support system. So things like we help pay for campership. We might do respite care. We offer parent groups. We have movie night for families so that everyone can go to the movies, and it doesn't matter if someone's deciding to chat the whole movie through, they're not going to be asked to leave. So we do a lot of even family events so that there is opportunity for other families to meet each other, be supportive of each other through this journey. But we do provide some direct delivery, which is things like family support services, respite care, as I mentioned, help families navigate services, and work very closely with the local special ed departments in our region so that we're at the table when an individual education plan is developed. And if there are more resources that that family needs beyond just what special education is offering, we're there with them. So that is a major effort by Gateways, and we serve many, many families that way. We also help transition out that department. Our family support department will start working with the families. Like if the individual student is going to graduate at 18 or 21, leave public education, we help facilitate the transition to our adult services. So it's a pretty comprehensive program, but we act as collaborators with our special ed departments in the region.
And sometimes these other experiences that the area agencies provide are very profound for families. Like I've had families who we've done the applications and gotten, the area agencies provided the funding for camps and things like that. And, or, for other recreational experiences that they wouldn't have the opportunity to partake in. And they've been life-changing opportunities for these individuals and for their families too. So it makes a huge difference as far as that goes. When these students transition, oftentimes at whatever age it is, and a lot of the families opt to go into self-directed services. Can you tell our audience a little bit about what is self-directed and why is that a benefit? Because you guys were pretty much at the forefront of the self-directed programming here in New Hampshire. And so how is that different from regular programming?
It really, again, I go back to the partnership. This is the family, the parents or guardians and are the individuals that have the authority. We're the co-employer. They're the individual that decides exactly how their services need to be delivered to their sons and daughters. And many families now are moving in that direction. I mean, the difference is we call it two things. One is self-directed services, as you mentioned, or participant-driven managed services is the official name, but back in the day it was called self-directed, or traditional services. Some families come to us and they'll say, okay, my son or daughter needs to go get some supported work and may need to live outside the home and need residential care. That's more traditional. And the family is saying, you know what, Gateways or the provider, you really manage that, you manage the budget, you make all the decisions. And there's nothing wrong with that. But we're now seeing a lot of families coming to us and saying, we really want to still be the decision maker in our son and daughter's lives. So we work with them. We, work closely with them to assess the needs of their son and daughter and determine what kind of supports are required so that an independent life is possible. And we create a budget together, and that budget gets submitted to the Department of Health and Human Services and gets approved. And the family gets to choose on how some of the services get delivered. So for instance, they may say, we would like an individual to be a caregiver and we need some support early in the morning. And they can choose the worker alongside us and they supervise and employ the worker. We're the employee of record, but they get to choose. And I use the example. We often find that people might not apply for a job at Gateways, but if they to work in this field, but they happen to know the individual themselves personally, maybe it's their neighbor, someone, their former school bus driver, etc. And they all of a sudden, the family says, hey, you want to come work with my son or daughter for 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week? And it's really been a wonderful experience. We have found that many individuals have been longtime employees for individual families. And because they have a personal connection, they get to know the individual, and they want to do this. They want to help this individual be as independent as possible. So what it really is the individual parents and guardians, they're really managing how much resource is given to them. They get to manage it. They have much more independence in the decision making, and they control the environment that is created for their son and daughter. We have a great case right now that was brought to my attention. It was a young gentleman, a young man who really has significant challenges behaviorally and also, has some limited verbal speech ability. And he was not being very successful. The pandemic didn't help, but he has a lot of anxiety when he goes in big groups programming. Well, with the help of his mom, she created a very individualized program for him. And she was able to find some space where he could go daily. And she created a whole program designed specifically for him. And every day goes to this work site, does some pretty comprehensive efforts, work efforts. And his mom designed it for him because she knew him really well.
Oh, wow, there's
And
somebody that
and
knows
he's
individual.
making so much progress where he had so much anxiety and behavioral concerns, didn't want to leave the house, etc. But because mom was able to create this unique environment for him, he's been showing some amazing progress. Those are the more individualized opportunities that exist.
So for a lot of families, when they're talking to us about services and saying, oh gosh, about this and that, and they're apprehensive to move in that direction. And a lot of times they're apprehensive because they don't feel like they have the qualifications and the skills in order to help manage these sorts of programs and do this. So can you talk a little bit about the type of support that you guys provide to get families up to speed so that they feel competent in these areas?
We do a lot of training and we do a lot of hand holding. I mean, it's not for everyone, and I don't want families to feel obligated, but what we're finding, especially with the workforce crisis, the families know that they probably have a better network of finding workers.
Yep.
I mean, I've seen some incredible postings on Facebook or care.com, and family members have been able to find some, again, it could be a cousin, it could be a neighbor, could be that former bus driver, whoever
They know the people
happens
that
to
are
know their
involved
sons and
in them.
daughters.
Yeah.
But we provide a lot of support and training. So if a family member, say their son or daughter is turning 18 or 21, leaving special ed, we sit and give them all their options. And in many cases, the individual might only want to be doing some supported work at that point. The family doesn't need residential care or not looking for it. So they might create a very unique opportunity for their sons and daughters. Like they might say, we want supported work during the week. We might need some respite care. I might want to go with my husband every few months to an overnight, getaway, or I need a little bit of relief, or I'm a working mom, so I need somebody here from 7 to 9 before the individual goes to a day program. It's looking at all of the opportunities. Maybe there's a couple of weeks in the summer, the individual's going to a camp, all of that gets considered in the planning process. And the staff at Gateways, we have a number of service coordinators who are well aligned in this and understand it well, everything from budget development and submission to the state to monitoring the resources with the family members, making sure that everything gets paid, helping families become supervisors of employees. And we have a lot of capability here at Gateways to support families to choose that model if they so choose.
Yeah, which is so important because just the fact of having choice, oftentimes it makes it seem that less scary because there's an option. There's, having more than one option, I think, makes people feel so much more secure. Sandy, there's one topic I'd like to talk about, because this is kind of a hot topic everywhere right now. I know you have some new initiatives coming out regarding housing. So can you share that? Because that, from all aspects of the gamut, I'm hearing from families is a challenge as far as like housing for their loved ones, housing for themselves, the housing crisis in general.
Absolutely. Again, I think coming out of the pandemic, and I mentioned this to you earlier, two major systemic issues are happening across the country, and that's workforce and housing. I mean,
Yep.
Every national conference, any effort I'm on around what major policy shifts need to occur, both at the federal and state level, is a real shortfall in workforce availability and then also housing availability. People can't afford the cost of housing. And so general people can't. The rising cost of housing has just been astronomical in the last few years. And then the inventory of it is also a problem. So it's a combination of the both, I'm sure. But families are coming to us and they're saying, look, I'm in my 80s and my son and daughter could be 50, 60 years old and they're still living with us. What's the opportunities for the future? So what happened is I think New Hampshire did take some action in the last year and a half. They used the American Rescue money, the ARPA money that came in from the federal government, and were able to access some of those funds to address some of these needs, and both the housing need and the workforce need. And they had sent out a request for proposals to many people in the nonprofit world. And Gateways was a recipient of some of those funds by applying for certain projects. And we are involved in two major housing efforts right now. One is Gateways owns a number of properties that are used as group homes or shared living models, where and a shared living model is where an individual lives with like another person, and they live together and they exist in the house, when the trade-off is the individual gets support by the shared living person that lives in a home with them. We also have small group homes where three individuals might live in a group home with paid staff. So Gateways has a number of properties, and we had one property that we were rethinking its purpose and was able to go to the state and ask for us to recreate a 4-person home. And this modeled home is going to be unique in the fact that it's going to be geared to individuals with autism and who really need a different kind of environment, an environment that really supports their needs. And we're looking at all the new technology that's available and really kind of creating a new unique model that really helps the individual become as independent as possible. And using the new technology that's out there and making it, testing to see of its efficiencies. And we want to see if the environment is developed in a certain way that really helps the individual manage some of their needs.
Absolutely.
So we're
additional.
excited about that. We're hoping that breaks ground in a couple of months. So we're excited about that. And the other was, we have another property that in Nashua that we're excited about. We're really hoping, we've got our fingers crossed. We've gotten a lot of preliminary support by the city, by the state, by Senator Shaheen's office and others. Everybody's excited about this. We're planning to put a 9-apartment building here in the city of Nashua, which is walking distance on the bus line. And the hope is that we will integrate workforce into that house, into that apartment building, to support up to 7 individuals who can live independently or semi-independently in their own apartments. And there will be workforce housing in it, as well as apartments for individuals with disabilities. And the goal is that it's accessible, it's near downtown, individuals can really live more independently than they have in the past, but it will also test the concept of having workforce embedded in the property, with their own apartments, trying to give them affordable housing. And in return, they act as a support for the individuals living in the home.
Yes.
So it's unique that way. I mean, there's lots of housing opportunities happening throughout the state. Other organizations are creating new opportunities as well. Some are very family driven, but I think what's a little bit unique with this one is it's downtown, it's walking distance, bus line, you can get to the grocery store easily, and we're going to integrate some workforce and test if you get some reasonable rent amount, can you continue to work in our field?
Right.
So that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. And this model would be fantastic. Everybody's struggling for work, having enough employees and that sort of thing. I met with a school a couple of weeks ago, and they're actually purchasing homes for potential staff, for people to work within their schools, teachers and that sort of thing, and school staff, because they're like, we don't have enough housing where we live, and we can't attract employees to support our students because there's nothing on the housing market here. So being super creative about, creating homes within homes and things like that to help support. And I think we're going to have to be more and more creative about that because of the housing issue and not having enough employees. Like, we need individuals who can support the work that we all do. And that's a struggle. And if we can't make their lives enriched, then it's going to be more and more challenging for us. So finding ways to enrich their lives is critical to getting them into this field.
We've had people come and say to me, Sandy, I really love working at Gateways. It's a great experience, et cetera, but I can't do it economically.
Yeah.
I have to leave.
Yeah.
And it's really sad because we need really quality workforce. Who makes the most difference in people's lives? It's the people that touch their lives every day, right?
And
it's the
directly with
teachers,
them.
it's the therapist, it's the direct support worker, it's the service coordinator. And if we don't have quality staff that are touching individuals' lives, I mean, that's what makes a difference in a person's life. It's
100%.
those people for for certain.
Yep, they are the backbone of what's holding it all together and everything else. So I
Absolutely.
will put some links so that people can see how to get a hold of you, so our community can reach out to Gateways if they should need those sorts of supports and that sort of thing. And Sandy, is there anything else you want to share with our community?
Well, the only thing I didn't do a shout out to, and I really want to, is our Autism Center. Gateways has a really phenomenal autism center here in Nashua, and we serve about 20 little ones between the ages of 3 and maybe 9. Some of our special ed departments buy some of the services from us as well. So some of our therapists are applied behavior analysis and RBTs. They go out and work with the school districts as well. But we have a great group of staff here and doing some pretty comprehensive services for little ones with autism, and they're just rocking it. And maybe you could put a link on, we have a great story, it's
Oh.
Landon's story, and it just talks about his journey here at Gateways as an example of a little one that went through our programs and all the successes that he's been able to accomplish with some support. So that's a great program. And again, between one of the things I like coming to Gateways and in the building, I get to see the little ones in early intervention being assessed, and I love meeting their families. And then I get to see the little ones, we're supporting who have been diagnosed with autism, and the great work that the staff here at Gateways does really is incredibly motivating.
Critical at setting them up for future success at early learning. It's definitely a platform that I'm always on, getting people to a better step because, man, it just takes so much more resources as they get older. So really helpful to do that. We'll put a link on for that below. Sandy, thank you again so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us today. It's been wonderful, and you have had such amazing things that are going on. It's really interesting. I can't wait to see what you guys do in the next few years.
Well, I really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you for creating this opportunity for the community. And again, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.